If anybody's ever watched the channel before, they know I'm not a huge fan of painting up a huge force of miniatures. It takes a long time and I generally get a bit bored when you're painting them. One thing I'm a huge fan of though is skirmish games where you get to kit bash your own minis and create something fairly unique. Every mini is a character, they have their own backstory, and I found a new game that definitely does that. And it's got a premise and lore that I really rather like. So we're all going to go over the top and into the Bloodmoss. And here we are. As you can see, I've made a mini beforehand, and these are just me showing off the kits. Now these are the 1/35th scale kits, and as per the Instagram, so go over and look into the Bloodmoss on Instagram, you'll find a really good kit for, well, not kit, it's a it's a document that the creators have made to give you sort of a startup on how to kit bash minis for the game. And it's really well done. It gives you all the information you need, and if you've played Warhammer, or if you've got Warhammer bits sitting around, all the bits work. They are within scale, other than heads and hands and things like that, but a lot of the weapons, weapon heads, pistols and things like that, not so much, but a lot of the weapons themselves do fit into the setting. Grenades and stuff are a little bit too small, but they will work. But of course, because of the hero scale nature of Warhammer bits, they work fairly well, and the nature of them, they work for the setting. And of course, the setting itself starts in 1914 in World War One, in Central Europe, of course, with all the trenches and things like that. And you begin to see, of course, the war accelerating with people using chemical warfare and the sort of the poisoning of the earth and the firestorms of, you know, everything that was terrible going on during World War One. And if you don't know too much about World War One, I would definitely suggest going off and listening to Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, and it's absolutely amazing. You know, it just puts it all in context for you. The absolute cost of life and the gargantuan toll it took upon generations of people. But the fact that it became a war where chemicals and things were used, just terrible. But as this story goes on, it eventually leads into the 1930s, so World War One continues on for almost 16 years in this case, and this new and final terror shows up, as they call it. And it was first observed in Poland, always in Poland, and it's a parasitic red weed, and they named it Bloodmoss. And nobody knows its origin, where it came from, what it possibly is, and it just started taking over the land and feeding on the bodies of the dead, and began growing like arteries of living flesh. And it likes to prey upon mammals. So the years continue, and this parasitic moss just continues to grow and begins to spread uncontrolled. And of course, it spreads throughout most of Europe, and supply lines were cut and communication just disappeared, and they quarantined the entire continent in some kind of attempt to contain the blood moss. And of course, it didn't really, well, it was kind of futile, but anyway. And America enforced a naval blockade to the western side. The Soviet Union raised a wall that they refer to as the Red Wall in the east, and it's just concrete. And it's in the Urals, I believe. And they just deny anything is beyond it, essentially. And Europe was just abandoned to be left to rot in this just sea of this moss that is growing and essentially killing and eating everything that it can find. And the next time, the law picks up, it's the late 1980s, and there's just nothing really going on in the Bloodmoss area. They just have fragments of a world there. They have isolated war bands that are just roaming these ruins. They just form up sort of crude imitations, I suppose, of society. They live within these trench labyrinths, essentially. Nations, borders, and identities just don't exist. That's it. They don't care. And they just consist of savage tribes, and that's it. They only live to survive. And the generations are very short, and they sort of pass down technology from generation to generation. And you either survive, drown in the moss, or go mad, and your characters are all still sort of fighting in a World War One style setting. So it's crazy. And yeah, there's this constant fight of, gangs who have their own sort of ideas and beliefs, and war bands, mobs. There's no mercy, and everybody's just after resources to survive in any way, shape, and form. Again, highly suggest you go over to the Instagram and check out the lore, the artwork, the miniatures that are being made. They are totally just amazing, the inspiration. And of course, what I'm doing here is, not super, super like great. It's just general kit bashing. I'm sorry that I'm sort of, you'll see my hands come in and out of screen and that. And I'm running the whole footage at 4 times speed, and it's fairly long, this video, as you can see, but I just loved kit bashing all these together. The cool thing is too, with this, I got to use some techniques, as you can see here, with different materials. I've used, this is some bed sheet that was sent to me. If you go back and look at the Bloodmoss videos, I said I would use these bed sheets in one of my videos in a craft situation, whether it was for and you can see I've copied these sort of, I don't know what they're called, but they're usually, yeomen usually wear them, archers, and I wanted to make these sort of trench coat, if not Templar like outfits for these guys, and this is what I went with. As you can see, I'm watching Almighty Lolly's Berserk go through. I'm a huge fan of Berserk, so probably about once a year I listen to the entire Berserk saga being essentially, read to me. I think the entire thing that Lolly has done is over like 12 hours long, so, oh no, more than that. It's like 14 or maybe even longer than that now. But yeah, as you can see, we just get them with the fabric here is just glued on, cut to shape, and then I use glue here and the tweezers to tease it into shapes that look like natural folding cloth. I don't like, if it's sorry, I hit it with a wire brush to create the torn effect. It was just I just had so much fun doing these. It really was. And after doing nothing but Tyranids for almost, I think, 2 or 3 weeks, I was happy to do something different. And you can see I've got, one mini completely together who is he's actually a US. That's where the gas masks actually come from, the US kit. And I got a US and a German kit. So the US character, I just put him together pretty much as he was, as he is more of a just a standard rank and file soldier, where the 2 melee guys are more sort of probably of higher rank. One of them's higher rank than the other. The other one actually has a this sort of tilt shield that they used to wear on their chests. One of them has one, but it's a broken shovel essentially that he's turned around, and that is his sort of shield that he would have his idea of his coat of arms or whatever on it. And this other one is more of a berserker. He's the one I showed at the start of the video, who has, he put a halo on his helmet, but it's actually like a disc of like a disc blade, a serrated blade. So the idea that they don't necessarily, they do have a little bit of a religious edge to them, but they're not really. It's more of a we're here to kill people. So whether, and as I showed you, he was sprayed red and black for their undercoat. So whether I make them some kind of crimson colors or something like that, we'll see. But yeah, you'll see me here messing around. I don't have too many comments to make, so you'll probably hear me pop in and out of this video when I need to comment now. As I've talked about the lore and stuff, pretty much as we have at the moment. There is more, but I would prefer to say please go to Instagram and check out the actual creators' stuff, because they're doing great work. It's amazing, and they deserve the look and the like and the follow, So yes, please go over there. Originally, I did want to 3D print some bases, but sadly, the van is way too hot to be able to, well, that's why I'm in here, inside. It's too hot to work out in, and that means it's also too hot to use a 3D printer out in. So 3D printers don't work well in 30 something degree heat. We've also had days of 40 degree heat here. That's over 100 in Fahrenheit. So I just went with, basic trench design. As you can see, I've got some blues of Vallejo scenic mud and stuff, and I'm using all bits and pieces I've got. I've got a craft knife, and I'm just, it's me scrolling through YouTube finding videos. Sorry about that. But you will see me with a craft knife here, just trimming stuff up, drilling holes for bullet holes, hacking away at them, different things, just to create character in these bases. And the one thing I would say is that you see me putting on some reindeer moss. That's green that I'm going to paint. I'm probably going to suggest to actually get some dark red reindeer moss, buy some, and put it on last, after the minis are completely painted, or when the minis are being painted, because, or when doing the basing as the last thing, because it's very hard to dry brush with it actually on the base. I put glue on them to sort of hopefully keep them rigid so they wouldn't get too damaged, and trying to just dry brush to undercoat to give them the zenithal highlights, they just were ripped apart. It was a silly idea to do that, of course, but I think just getting the red reindeer moss is just going to be easier anyway, or I have to reapply the ones I've got and paint them, which is what I probably will do now that I've said it, rather than buy some more reindeer moss. But yeah, that's definitely something everyone should look into, and that's what the creator actually uses, the dark red reindeer moss, and you can easily get it here, there, and everywhere. I think even Temu might sell it if you're willing to wait to get it. You probably get it for a lot cheaper on there. Just have to give it a shot, see what you can find. Now you see here, I'm actually wetting the mud. It's supposed to appear as wet mud. I have a feeling I'm probably going to get some border effects in there, here, there, just to add puddles and stuff. But wetting it allows you to spread it out over the wood, and the wood still will keep its texture as well as everything. This texture paste has been out in the van. It's very hot out there. So I had to add quite a bit of water to it to sort of reactivate it, and it still is good to use. And it's added a lot more sort of chunky bits to it that have definitely set and won't come back. But it has actually added some more character to it. And yeah, it kind of helped. And I did have some 3D printed bits, as you can see here, of like a bit of a. It's not a headstone, but, oh, it is a head. It's a gravestone, but it's made of wood on one of them, and this one's got an old oil can that I drilled holes in as if it's been shot to hell. Yeah, so again, little things like if you've done any Trench Crusade stuff, you're probably going to have things like this sitting around, candles, all that. On the already made mini that you'll see at the end, he is standing on a 3D printed crate with a lantern, and the lantern is from an Age of Sigmar kit that I've ended up kit bashing into something else. So yeah, you end up doing all different things here. Now this is me, I believe, beginning to add some of the yeah, this is me adding armor and stuff. Now this is actually from some of the Cadians. That's it, the old sort of Cadian trooper sets, and they have skulls on their shoulder pad thingies. Well, I cut the skulls off and cut away at them to make it look like it was a piece of metal that's been constantly damaged, reused, and so on. Eventually I drill holes in it as well. And I don't know what I was thinking about using super glue, because this was plastic on plastic. I could have just used my plastic glue that was right there, but oh well. And this is what you do. You take these historical 35mm minis, and you start doing all this weirdness with all this Warhammer hero. Yeah, I glued that to. I flagged my thumb. Yeah, all this Warhammer weirdness stuff. And this guy, again, because I wanted to make him sort of a regular trooper, I wanted to give him a flag. You know, just for some interest. But yeah, all these Warhammer bits that you've got, generally fantasy stuff, works well. Not so much the 40k stuff, but they do have bits that will come in handy. Necromunda stuff, definitely, because it kind of is in the borderline stuff, and, you know, if you're into Mordheim, Necromunda, you're going to have lots of Kitbash stuff kicking about. But yeah, hands and things, hands, heads, that kind of thing, they're not really going to work as well. Yeah, this is me messing around with this flag. And yeah, it came out pretty good, pretty well. Yeah, just all bits and pieces from everywhere here. I couldn't tell you where. Well, that flag I know comes from one of the new skeleton warriors, and then the big fork, or the big metal thing, comes from one of the Night Haunt characters as well. But yeah, it was me just testing out where it looks like it's going to go. Anyway, you can just keep watching this while I kit bash about, and I'll be back in a minute. The cool thing about this cloth too, when you've finally glued it down, is that you can drill holes in it. Now I'm using a bit of wood there, just so I didn't push through and just completely shatter the hell out of it. But you can also just use, you can just push it through. You can use a pin even and just push through rather than using the drill there. And you can see me here just making the holes bigger, adding a bit of damage, making them different shapes, because I want to add quite a few here and there. I cut away bits and try to make it look as, you know, realistically battle damaged as you can in a fictional skirmish game. And of course in a trench style game where everything's going to be hit with weather and detritus and so on. On my first mini, I actually put some of the mud texture on his outfit. I didn't do that this time around with these two because that should go on sort of last as a texture for the ground itself. To add to it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We'll get to it eventually. And then yeah, this is me starting to add weapons. Now I actually drilled his hands out to get the sword itself. I pinned it together from either end, and there's a metal rod, well actually a paper clip, excuse me, between the two holding it together. Excuse me. This other club was straight from the Deathcore of Creed kit, and that one I actually didn't pin together because I don't have a small enough drill bit nor pin. That's me adding on the big hacksaw bit to add the halo kind of thing. And again, all their feet were drilled and everything, just so I gave them a little bit more reinforcement to the bases. I've used guitar string for the vents, the piping for their air tubing and stuff, because the tubing that was on there didn't necessarily fit. And if that guy's going to be berserker, well, he wouldn't wear his air tank on the front of him. I put a piece of armor on the front of him. And here I come in with the moss, as you can see. And yeah, this ended up being sort of an oh well. But again, gives me an excuse just to add. There's some still on the base, and it'll act as sort of the root that sits on the bottom. Yeah. So I'll leave you to keep watching this. And again, you can always ask questions down below. Or again, I'm really pushing the Instagram for the creator here, because I'd like to get some eyes on this, and you're welcome to go over and ask them questions. Alright, ran out the home stretch here. This is me just adding texture and stuff using Typhus Corrosion and a bit of the Vallejo putty as well. You can just mix it with water and it'll do it. And here's all the final shots. Please go over to Instagram and check out Into the Bloodmoss. It's going to be a really good looking game. And yeah, I just want to thank you all for watching, as always. I know this one's a bit of a long one, but thank you again. And cheers as always.